The dead body of her boyfriend was swinging on a tree branch, above the car. He was gutted. Blood was flowing from his throat, completely flooding the car windows. A girl in search of work hired a nanny to a couple who lived in a large remote old house. They were going to watch a movie that night and left a young babysitter to look after their children. The babysitter put the children to bed when it got dark and went downstairs to watch TV. As soon as she settled down, the phone rang. When she answered, she heard heavy breathing and a man's voice asked, "Are you looking after the kids?" Frightened, she hung up the phone, trying to convince herself that it was just one of her friends making fun of her. She went back to watching TV, but 15 minutes later the phone rang again. She picked up the phone and heard hysterical laughter. Then the same voice asked, "Why didn't you check the kids?" The girl threw the phone away. The poor girl was scared out of her mind and immediately called the police. The operator told the babysitter that if the man calls again, she needs to try to talk to him longer. This will give the police time to trace the call. A few minutes later, the phone rang for the third time, and when the babysitter answered, she heard heavy breathing again. The voice said, "You really need to check the kids." The nurse listened to his hysterical laughter for a long time. She hung up, and the phone rang again almost immediately. This time it was the police cameraman who screamed, "Run out of the house immediately." The calls were from the top phone in the house. The babysitter dropped the phone in shock and suddenly heard heavy footsteps coming down the stairs. Without wasting a second, she ran out of the house as fast as she could. As soon as she closed the front door behind her, the man's hand hit the glass in the door. She screamed and ran out into the street just as the police arrived. The police searched the house and found the children hiding in the closet. In the parents' bedroom, they found an axe lying on the floor. The back window was open and the curtains were swaying in the wind. There was no trace of the madman who made these calls. He disappeared into the night when the police thwarted his plan to kill the children and the poor nanny. One woman was very fat and really wanted to lose weight. She tried all the diets, but none of them helped her. There was no question of sports, because she was very lazy and she lacked the willpower to force herself to eat less and exercise. One day she was surfing the internet and came across an advertisement for Chinese diet pills. Guaranteed weight loss in just 2 weeks, the ad said. A certain company was selling weight loss pills over the internet for a small price, so the woman decided to order more pills. 2 weeks later, she received a package from China. When she opened it, she was surprised to see that there were only 12 large pills. The instructions said that she should take 1 tablet a month, fill it with a glass of water, and after that she should avoid eating spicy food and alcohol. The woman put a weight loss pill in her mouth and swallowed it. A few days later, she noticed that she had completely lost her appetite. She didn't feel hungry. And even though she didn't do any exercise, she started losing weight. As time went on, she lost more and more weight. A few days passed, and she was already admiring her slim waist in the mirror. The effect of the pills was amazing. Her pear-shaped body took the shape of an hourglass in a very short time. Unfortunately, the weight loss pills turned out to be more effective than she expected. Although she achieved the desired result, she continued to lose weight and became thinner and thinner. Soon she began to feel weak and tired. She began to have sharp pains in her stomach and chest. The pain finally became so severe that she was forced to go to the hospital. The doctor examined her and x-rayed her abdomen and chest. He asked her if she had eaten anything strange or exotic lately. "No," the woman replied. I haven't eaten anything since I've been taking weight loss pills. The doctor asked her to show the pills. He broke one capsule and took the contents to the laboratory for examination. When he returned, he told the woman the bad news. Diet pills contain tapeworm eggs. And when the X-ray pictures were ready, even a seasoned doctor had a heart attack. There were worms everywhere in his stomach and chest. The Little Angels Kindergarten in New Jersey once became the site of a horrific mass murder. On the 7th of October, 1998, the bodies of 13 children were found here. The bodies of the older children were found on the floor, where they lay down for a midday nap. The cause of death was poisoning. The police investigation and the testimony of the only surviving child shed light on this terrible incident. The kindergarten director, known as Annie's mother, was found guilty. They say that many years ago, Annie's mother went crazy from the death of her only child. To get rid of her loss, she began working as a nanny for a rich family. But her love for children was not enough to overcome the disease at my heart. Soon she fell into depression and despair. When the children she cared for disappeared, she was taken in for questioning by the police. She hired a lawyer and refused to answer all questions. In the absence of evidence against her, the police had to release her. She immediately left the state and the authorities lost track of her. It wasn't long before she appeared in New Jersey, taking a different name for herself. She opened the kindergarten Little Angels, and no one suspected about the tragedy that happened recently. At first it seemed that everything was fine with her, but soon loneliness and rage consumed Mariani again, forcing her to once again turn into a ruthless killer. On the day when the murder took place, he was no different from the others. Yanni's mother, as usual, worked in the kitchen, preparing lunch for the children, but she added a few drops of rat poison to each glass of milk. She left the kitchen, crossed the playground and brought trays of food into the room with the children. They ate cookies, and then drank milk, which Mariania put in front of them. After a few minutes, I began to act, and the children began to writhe in pain on the floor. As soon as the children began to scream in pain, Mariania locked them in the room and went to the room to the babies. It is said that she took the babies in her arms and rocked them forward in her chair, giving them a drink from a poisoned bottle until they quieted down. She left a note explaining why she did it. It said, "All the little angels have returned to heaven." To this day, the Motini are at large. Although the kindergarten has been closed for many years, people who live in the area claim to hear ghostly sounds of children playing and singing. Probably, their souls have remained on earth and are forever connected with the place where they died such a terrible death. See the ghost? This is Tom. There is no skin on it at all. Oh, well, how cold he is. There was a guy named Tom in Tennessee. He was a handsome guy who loved women. One day he started dating a girl from a neighboring town, not knowing that she was married. In the end, her husband found out about it and vowed to take revenge on them by drinking. He told his wife that he was going out of town for the weekend, and then disappeared into the landing behind their house. As he had expected, Tom appeared in the evening. His wife got into his car, and they went to the nearest grove. When they were kissing, the car door suddenly opened and Tom came face to face with an angry husband who had a hunting knife in his hands. "Oh, no," the girl screamed. "This is my husband, bastards!" The husband screamed, "I will teach you a lesson that you will never forget." He pulled her and Tom out of the car, stabbed his wife in the stomach and threw her aside, and then he turned to Tom and smiled angrily. "Don't kill me," Tom pleaded. "I swear to God, I didn't know she was married." But the husband was no longer listening to him. He killed him and skinned him. Then he returned to the city and surrendered to the police. When the police arrived at the crime scene, they found a woman who miraculously survived, but Tom was nowhere to be found. All that remained of him were pieces of skin removed from him. They say that Tom still appears near that grove. The guard is a couple in love to teach them a lesson that his jealous husband taught him. He is described as a bloody skeleton dressed in formal attire. In his hands he has the same knife with which he was skinned. All the young people who live in this area have often heard the warning: do not go to that grove if you do not want to become the next victim at home.
You haven't heard such scary stories yet, so sit back and don't forget to turn off the light.
Many years ago there was a road that locals called the Endless Road. Some people say that it was the Lester Road Highway in California, others claim that it is the Mid-Hot Springs Road in Canada. It was a long winding road, unlit and bordered by dense forest. It passed through the mountains. According to legend, many people who dared to drive along this road at night disappeared forever. And no one has ever seen them again. The legend of the Endless Road has become so famous that many people have become afraid to drive on it even in the daytime. Some drivers lost their composure and turned back right in front of the road, fearing that if they continued on their way, no one would see them anymore. At one point this road has a sharp turn. The road at this point curves around the Grand Canyon. There were no fences, and the continuation of the road is visible on the back side of the canyon. One summer, workers were working on the road, who were engaged in the expansion of the highway. They made a terrible discovery. One of the workers pushed a stone into the canyon and heard the clang of metal as the stone fell down. When the workers went down to see what was there, they found dozens of broken cars. They were all smashed. And dozens of decomposing bodies and skeletons were still strapped to the driver's seats. It was found that the road is laid out so on both sides of the canyon that if you look at it from a certain angle, an optical illusion is created, especially at night. The canyon was almost impossible to see, and it seemed that the road continued on. People who were driving on the road at night had no idea that they were going straight into the canyon until it was too late and they fell off the cliff and crashed to their deaths. They say that local law enforcement agencies hushed up this discovery, wanting to avoid a scandal, and the road was slowly closed. This track never worked again. According to legend, the corpses of the dead were never taken out, and they still lie there, in their metal coffins. The family went on vacation and settled in a room of a cheap old hotel. They booked 2 one-room suites. One for myself and one for my children, a boy and a girl. When they got to their room, they smelled an unpleasant smell. The husband called down and asked to talk to the manager. He explained that there was a terrible smell in the room and they would like to take another room. The manager apologized and said that all the rooms were booked. But he said he would send the maid to the room to clean up and try to get rid of the smell. After lunch, the family returned their room. When the children entered their room, they still smelled the same smell. Their father called downstairs again and told the manager that the room still stinks. The manager replied that he could not help with anything else. Thus, the children had to spend the night in the room. Eventually they fell asleep, and in the morning their parents knocked on the door to wake them up. When they opened the door, their father felt a strong smell of stench and decided to find out what is the source of the terrible smell. He began to search the whole room. He sniffed the towel, removed the curtains, and checked the carpet. The children helped too. We checked the bed linen and mattress. When the boy pulled out the top mattress of the bed, he saw a large hole in the bottom tier of the bed. He looked through the hole and came face to face with a terrible sight. There lay the twisted dead body of a woman. The boy realized that he had been lying all night only a few inches from the rotting corpse. There were two girls who were best friends at school. When they started college, they decided to live in the same room. One night they stayed up late, trying at the last moment to learn a subject for one midterm exam, which was scheduled for the next morning. One of the girls was pretty lazy, so she decided to quit studying and go to bed early. The other girl was a hard worker, so she sat until the last, trying to pass the exam well. During the night, the girl who stayed to study remembered that she had forgotten one of the textbooks she needed in the bedroom. She didn't want to wake up her girlfriend by turning on the light, so she slipped into the bedroom and searched for her textbook in the dark. She heard heavy breathing and quietly whispered the name of her girlfriend, asking if she was asleep. There was no response. Then the girl heard something moving in the dark, and she whispered, "Can I turn on the light?" There was no response. The girl cleared her throat and asked again, "Can I turn on the light? I need to find something." Her roommate didn't answer. The girl sighed in disappointment and continued to search for the book in the dark bedroom. Eventually she found what she was looking for. The girl took the book and groped her way to the door in the dark. She stayed up all night preparing for the exam. "And in the morning I ran to the exam and passed all the tests." But she noticed that her friend did not show up for the exam. The girl became worried, and when she returned home, she rushed up the stairs and knocked on her friend's door. No one answered. The girl then became really anxious. The door was open. When she entered, the most terrifying sight in her life opened before her eyes. She was brutally murdered. Then the girl turned around and saw what froze her blood in her veins. The words were written in blood on the wall, "Aren't you glad you didn't turn on the light?" The girl and her boyfriend were driving along a separate country road. As they drove, the night seemed to get darker and darker. Eventually they got lost and ended up in a wooded area that was unfamiliar to them. Suddenly the car started twitching and stopped. The guy looked at the pressure gauge and realized that they had run out of gasoline. The girl started to panic, because it was already midnight, and they were stuck in an unknown place and could not get home. The guy got out of the car and looked around. They were in a secluded wooded area. All he could see were trees. They were all alone. The girl was scared and asked the guy to do something. He told her that he would have to go back to the main highway and find help. The guy saw how scared his fiancée was and told her not to worry. He'll be back as soon as he can. But the girl saw the concern in his face. After kissing her goodbye, he told her to lift the windows and unlock the doors. Then he went back to the road. The girl saw her boyfriend walking further and further away and finally disappeared into the darkness. Hours passed, and the girl sat shivering in the car, fearing every shadow she saw and every noise she heard. She began to feel that her boyfriend would never come back. Suddenly she heard the sound of a blow on the roof of the car. She started to panic, but was too scared to go out to see who was on the roof. She kept trying to look through the windows, but it was too dark to see anything. The knocking seemed to be getting louder. The girl was scared to death, but she couldn't do anything. She was forced to stay in the car all night, listening to strange tapping sounds. Eventually she managed to fall asleep. When she woke up and looked at her watch, it was 9 in the morning. And when she tried to look out of the car window, everything was completely black. She couldn't figure out what was going on. Suddenly she heard a car stop nearby and honked 3 times. Then she heard a scream. Is it the police? If someone is in the car? The girl sighed with relief. Just me. My boyfriend left me here alone and didn't come back. All right, stay calm. Open the door and get out of the car. Come to me. Whatever happens, don't look back. The girl obeyed the orders of the policeman. Although her hands were shaking and her thoughts were confused, she opened the car door and got out. Now come to me. Go, don't look back. The girl slowly walked towards the policeman, but suddenly stopped because she saw a hanging body in the rearview mirror. Don't look back, a policeman shouted, but it was too late. She turned around and screamed in horror.